All right, Maddie. So nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too, Malida.
So we're at the end of 2023.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. And you were my first person in my first podcast. Oh my gosh. I'm so happy to have you back again to do this kind of year in review.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
we are going to switch the roles, actually.
Yes, we are.
And I'm going to be the one who's going to interview you.
Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh.
As I did at the very beginning.
Yeah.
It's an honor for me to basically see your growth over the year.
Oh, thank you.
And to see how much you accomplished.
Oh my gosh.
Therefore, because at the end of the year, we usually do all sorts of lists to do lists for the new year and resolutions and recaps for the year that eventually we had. I'm going to invite you in a journey with me to remember what you have done with your podcast, Happily Ever Understood, by iListen. And we are going to recap every month and we are going to see what was good, what was bad. You know, like leave everything that was bad aside. And move forward. Eventually with what was good. The lessons that we eventually learned.
My gosh, yes. Yeah.
And I'm going to guide you eventually from the 12 months. And I'm going to start with January. So in January, you basically started your business, well, actually the podcast, Happily Ever Understood. And you had quite a few challenges.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So yeah, the first podcast we did was 2020 July, I think it was, in the summer in your beautiful living room there. And I've learned a lot since then with video editing, the equipment, how to, time-wise, how to set up everything with my kids, right? So we're still a work in progress.
Who are great assistants.
Yeah,
we have to give them credit for that.
Yeah, I have to give my son credit for the audio, especially. Again, we had some big lessons we learned, but we got through it. So thank goodness. But yeah, the big part was in the beginning. I think mentally for me was like having to do it, having to bring a guest on, finding a guest, and then asking the conversation the right questions. As you know, it's draining, right? It's mentally draining. And the big one for me for the before 2023 was finding podcast guests. Because I just started. So it was really a challenge for me. And it took me down that dark path of like, if I even worth it? Is it worth it for me to even do this? Am I worthy enough for people to be guests? But I found that a few months later in the fall, I was going through all that social media, that fiasco I had with trying to get support. I decided to figure out what I can control. And when I stepped back, I started to figure out, okay, what's going to make me happy? What impact am I trying to create in this world?
So you basically listened to your inner voice.
To myself, yes. Sometimes you forget to do that. Oh my gosh. So then 2023 happened, the new year, something switched. When I went from struggling to finding guests, people were contacting me. It's like, how did you find me? First of all, how did you find me? And second, like, I can't believe you want to be on my podcast. So, thank you to all the podcast guests that I've had so far. We're into our second season now, and I've got a backlog, a wait list of people, which is lovely. Truly amazing. So
that is lovely. Only today you have like 4 or 5 different
Yes,
guests.
I have a lot of people coming.
That's amazing.
Into the studio.
That is amazing. That is really something. So January was, let's say, like the beginning, when at the beginning all is struggle, and you still have to figure out what is going to work, what is not going to work, and so on and so forth. And you're going to learn who you can count on and who you cannot count on, right?
Man, that is one of the biggest lessons. When I thought, especially friends that I've met from my entire lifetime, people that I worked with, in my past jobs who were friends. I mean, I understand. I try to take their point of view because that's, me. I'm trying to be curious and understanding of their point of view. I had a lot of friends say, well, it goes both ways. Yes, it does. However, I'm trying to run a business, right? And this is a source of income for me. So there is a difference between me just being a content creator, right, and posting on social media, and actually doing it to make it for profit, which is, I got to put food on the table, right? Yeah. I gotta put food on the table and pay the bills. So there is a difference. But those who really know me and know what my purpose is in life have seen, like you, for example, you've been a wonderful supporter in my growth as an entrepreneur. And even little things is so important. I'm going to cry about it. It does touch me right there, because it's this little thing is huge. Yeah. You, by sharing my posts, are going to be able to show your world my business, and maybe someone there might go, oh, actually, I do need that service. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So that's the important part of that.
And I think that's also a good lesson to be in the service of the community, and basically to learn how to nourish those relationships in the community, and basically to provide the people with the information that they might need, right?
Yeah.
So coming back to our recap of 2023, in February was Black History Month.
Yes.
And you had 4 podcast guests.
Yes.
And you were also invited by University of Alberta.
Yes.
With the occasion of Social Justice Day, to be a book in the Living Library.
Oh my God! And thanks to you, for giving me that opportunity.
I'm representing University of Alberta today.
Yes, it was a wonderful experience to meet other participants there, and just learn about different people's lives, right? And I ended up having one of the participants as a guest on my podcast. And what really, really resonated with me, and with him too, was the fact that he told his story with me in this listening circle, and we didn't speak. We just listened to his story. And it was a very touching story. It was a story of trauma and hardship, but he came out the other side. He came from Venezuela, where there's a lot of political turmoil, and he came to Canada to start a new life, right? And so the second time that I met him was when he came onto my podcast, and he retold his story again, and even kind of more detail. And I noticed, he was still crying in my podcast. And I wanted to make sure he was okay at the end of the podcast. And he says, every time I talk about it, it's like a release. So yes, it's good for me to keep talking about it. And I was happy to be there to listen to him.
So the Living Library was your first experience as a book.
Yes.
So for those ones who don't know, Living Library is basically a concept where you can book a book, right? You can
a human book,
and you can listen to their story.
Yes,
and you can actually ask questions and interact with the book. And it was a beautiful. Well, it is actually a beautiful initiative of University of Alberta, but also it gives you the opportunity to learn the stories into a different way by interacting directly with the human beings.
Absolutely, and it originated from Denmark, and I think worldwide, I think it should be a trend that should be happening everywhere in this world. It's amazing how when someone tells their story, they feel so much better for talking about it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. March was Women's History Month, and you volunteered the Juno Awards.
Yes. So I had lovely female guests. I was trying to, again, a lot of my podcast guests, I try to support in their causes and their businesses, especially if they resonate with me. And then I had the opportunity to volunteer at the Juno Awards, which is kind of like the Canadian equivalent to the Grammys. So that was quite amazing. But the reason why I do these volunteer, especially something fun like the Junos, you meet people, right? It's another networking opportunity. And it's a fun networking opportunity, right? So I generally go once a month to all these business networking events. But I found, sometimes it's repetitive. You meet the same people, you're doing the same thing, right? But I wanted to do something fun. And so that's why the Juno Awards was something. I'm not even, I don't have any experience in the music industry. but it was a way to meet people. And certainly I did that. Wow. So I met a lady, her name is Hazra. She volunteers all over the city, an amazing human. And we are in contact, we're friends now. So, thank you, Hazra, for allowing me into your life and just, even giving me tickets to the Citadel. We were able to go one time. And so those are great opportunities. And then Kelly, I met, who's a financial advisor. He's now my financial advisor. And he was on my podcast. And we also helped organize this event that we're going to talk about in October. So
Lovely.
Wonderful opportunities.
Yes, we will get there. I'm happy to see that actually you point out or you mark those specific important days.
Yeah.
Like 8 years ago when I first arrived in Canada, nobody knew about 8th of March, for instance, right? The Women's International Women's Day, and then Women's History Month, and so on. And nobody would celebrate that. While in Europe, actually, it's a big thing.
Oh, really?
Yes, it is actually a big thing. So, guys, if you're right there on the 8th of March, you have to come with flowers to your partner or to your house, to your spouse, and
recognize them.
Recognize them and appreciate them for everything they bring into the world and for supporting basically the life that we have. So I'm happy you mark those days. And speaking about important days, also when we get to April, it was World Autism Awareness Day, and you had another podcast on this specific topic.
Right. And the reason why I wanted to have, to recognize that day is because I, just through a series of events, wonderful events, a lady by the name of Cheryl Wang from Norquest College, I met her at a networking event. And she's been one of my biggest champions too. She's just provided with me so many opportunities through Norquest College, but this one especially was a good program, and it was like a workplace program for autism students, and so I was able to work with them as an employer partner, and they helped me with my business. They helped my business grow with my social media, my following, and it taught me. I grew through that experience. Because I learned to be more compassionate and understanding, especially with people who have autism. And I had students from different levels on the spectrum. And some were a little bit challenging, and some were just a lot easier, to work with. But the ones who had a challenge, I challenged myself, to show more compassion, to be more patient, right? And I think all employers need to do the same. I think they need to include, people with disabilities, visible and non-visible. I think it's very important. And through this experience, I have learned I came into this world of disability now, being a big supporter now. And we're going to talk about more about that in my event in October. So
because April actually was the moment when you set up the base for your networking event in October. Beyond Barriers.
Yes.
So how did you come with that idea?
Yeah. So what's interesting? Again, in March I met Kelly, and Kelly and I were talking about doing an event. But I wanted it to be different. I didn't want it to be like every other networking event in the city. And because I am obviously an employer partner, with the Norquest College and the Autism Work Placement Program, but I'm also a member of the Brain Injury and Stroke Toastmasters group. So we have members there. Not all of them have brain injury. I myself don't. I'm a supporter. But there was one guy there who has cerebral palsy. And I love this group so much. First of all, they're very down to earth, right? And I just love that I can support these people and show them and help them with their confidence and leadership in, speaking.
Yeah.
Right? So that's important to me. But I'm also a volunteer at the Capital Care Kipnis Senior Center for veterans. And I brought my son on board because he's a cadet. He's a Sea Cadet, and he wants to join the military. And so I thought it would be good for him to meet these veterans, military veterans, some of them World War II, right? To listen to their stories. But then I just realized that a lot of these residents don't have a lot of family. And it's important for me to show them just that they matter too. And so I go in once in a week and meet with them. And I've made friends with a lot of the residents there, right? So
that is lovely.
Yeah.
It's so inspiring, and especially because you support people that are coming from a hard time and from big challenges that they have in their lives, right? And for somebody to acknowledge them and to give them the opportunity to talk and to speak and to interact with other human beings and to feel that they are part of the community and they are worthy.
Exactly.
Right? And we actually need them. That's actually very important. And I think it's also very important that you reflect that in your podcast.
Yes, yeah.
May was a big month. It was the first year anniversary of the launch of your business.
Yeah.
And what do you think that was the main purpose or the main, I don't even know how to call it. Like I think the main goal that actually guided you in this journey.
So, I like when I originally started iListen, it was to basically educate people on how to be better listeners. And also I want to practice what I preach, right? So I want to listen to people too. Those who want to be listened to, right? I found through this past year that a lot of people cannot grasp the concept of listening, which makes sense to me because I've mentioned before, statistics show 2% of the world is formally trained in how to listen properly, right? We can all say we listen, but are we truly, really listening with our heart, soul, and mind? And that's where I come in.
The concept of active listening, right?
Active listening, absolutely. And so when I've done, networking, I've done a few trade shows now. People really, when they come up to me, I thought my banner was, iListen was pretty self-explanatory, but they truly don't understand, which it baffles my mind, but at the same time, because I understand the statistics, I understand why people are confused, right? And so in my conversations with people, they really, a lot of them don't understand that, active listening is a thing, right? Like listening with your ear and then the information processing in your mind and then truly understanding it. And then taking away like the judgment and the criticism and all that, right? Is really difficult for people, which I'm finding. So that's one thing I'm still trying to push out there to show the world, even though it's been a challenge, right? As you see in my challenges, I had to listen to my heart. I had to step back and go, universe, God, whatever, am I truly supposed to be doing this? And each time my intuition and my heart says, yes, this is your purpose. So I'm running with that. I've never before. So yeah.
Absolutely. And we get to June, speaking about challenges and speaking about sensitive topics.
Yes.
You had 3 special podcasts in June that resonated with Pride Month, Indigenous History Month, with June 21st being National Indigenous Peoples Day. And you can eventually tell us more about it because when we speak about sensitive subjects, is that sometimes we do not have the information that we need to approach these subjects, right?
Absolutely.
And to approach these topics.
Yeah. So I also want to include Filipino Heritage Month was also part of June. So let me start with that. I myself being from the Philippines, born there, raised in Canada, I was able to see the difference between the two cultures. And I wanted to specifically bring a Filipino guest in who wanted to talk about mental health, because in Asian culture, it's a big no-no, The stereotype is, you have to like brush it under the, put it aside and
don't share with anybody.
Exactly.
Don't speak about.
Yeah. And pretend that you're okay.
Yeah.
And so I found this lady, Giselle. Thank you for being on my podcast. Wow. I found her actually. I saw her Instagram posts and I noticed she was talking about mental health, which I've never met a Filipino who talks about mental health ever. So I approached her and I said, I need you on my podcast because and I know there are other Filipinos struggling with their mental health and they don't want to talk about their struggles because there's shame. Right.
Yeah. And it is a cultural aspect,
Yeah.
right? Like how you approach certain
Yeah.
topics and how
Yeah.
you approach certain subjects and how not only much information you have on the specific topic, but also how you can open up the conversation with somebody about it. And where would you find the support that you need
Exactly.
in the community, right?
And so that's why I wanted Giselle to come on because I wanted to show the Filipino community, hey, I talk about mental health, but so does this woman here who's also in the same community. And let's have more conversations, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, please go on the podcast, not podcast, but listen to my podcast with her, but also go on her Instagram and you'll see what she is amazing. And then Indigenous History Month was important to me because, I'm in that community, obviously, Asia being a powwow dancer. So I want to support that community, especially. And I met this lady through one of my classes that I taught. And I got along with her very well. And she wanted to be a guest on my podcast. So I was really happy to have her. Myra, thank you for coming on my podcast. And then, of course, Kelly, who I met at the Juno Awards.
Lovely.
A transgender man. And, it's funny. I was looking for a guest for my LGBTQ podcast. Obviously, I wanted to, support that community as well. And when I asked him, I said, do you know anybody? Because he's pretty good at, hey, can you help me with this? Oh, I might know somebody, sort of thing. So he's got a pretty good network. And I was hoping he would be my guest. So I just kind of threw it out there. And he said, well, I am transgender. And I said, well, then please come on if you are willing to talk. So it was so nice to have him as a guest. Actually, all three guests for the month of June was just amazing. So I'm really happy about that.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And we get to July and August, the months of summer. Very beautiful in Edmonton.
Yeah.
Where you were able to showcase your business with a vendor booth at Chinatown Street Festival.
Yeah.
And the Sari Sari Filipino Night Market.
Yeah. So I had to, first of all, I kind of took a break with podcasting because as we know, it's a lot of work. And that was basically I was on the powwow trail with Asia. And of course, we talk about July being kind of the break from my business. And then in August, I was invited to the Chinatown Street Festival, which led to the Sari Sari Night Market, the Filipino Night Market. So yeah, I had to scramble really quickly within a week to get prepared for that. So that's a lot of work in itself too. But I was really grateful for the opportunity.
Also, August and September were very important because you featured for the issues of Heartfelt magazine.
Oh yeah, so Heart Held magazine actually. They gave me an opportunity to be in their magazine. I had like August was like the precursor to main article of September. So if you guys are interested in seeing my article, go to Heart Held magazine. You can search online, and then you can request a copy of the August and September. You have a copy.
Yeah.
I gifted you that. So,
Absolutely.
so that was really nice to be in a magazine.
That's nice.
Yeah.
September, you started the second session or season, or session, whatever, Happily Ever Understood podcast.
Yeah.
With Truth and Reconciliation for International Day of
Yeah.
Listening.
So let me tell you about that. I was searching for obviously an Indigenous guest to talk about Truth and Reconciliation Day or Orange T-shirt Day. Again, it's very important to me. So I had a guest, and I'm going to have her again eventually because the day that I needed her, she was in the hospital. She is a doula for a birthing for mothers, right, who are giving birth, and so she was in the hospital the day that we're supposed to do our podcast to help with a lady giving birth. So I had to scramble to find someone else. And Myra, thank you again. Stepped up. I was texting all my Indigenous friends, and I said, "Hey, could you help me find a guest?" and I think within hours, literally within hours, we found guests. And she found two for me. One who was Indigenous and the other one who was non-Indigenous. And I thought it was very important and a great idea because Myra had said, you need to have two different views on truth and reconciliation. And what an amazing conversation we had. It was beautiful. Yeah, so thank you for my guests.
That is so lovely.
Yeah.
October was actually a big thing.
Yeah.
It was your first edition of Beyond Barriers event.
Yeah.
And you have an invitation to be part of Career Week panel at Northwest College.
Yeah. Yeah, busy month.
Which led to another invitation to be a guest on Northwest podcast.
Yes, yeah. So let's talk about Beyond Barriers first. So that was a culmination of Kelly and I talking about having this networking event and supporting the disability community. And then we brought on board Desiree of Desired Treats and Darcy of My Little Red Wagon. And they also both have disabilities. So it was really nice to showcase their business too. So the four of us, Charlene was also there, who works with Kelly to help out. They were kind of like my event team. I couldn't do it without them, so thank you. But yeah, we started... So I had started searching for an event location back in the spring, back in May, June. It was a challenge. And for some reason, I stuck with this one location because it just made sense to me. It was wheelchair accessible. That's a big thing for me, to have accessibility. Some locations say they have accessibility, but sometimes it's still a challenge, right, to get into the building.
That's another topic that we could eventually address, right?
Yes, for sure.
Or you could address in one of your podcasts.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that. I do have guests lined up for that. But with Beyond Barriers, I wanted to make sure, I wanted to think in the mind of a person with a disability, right? So accessibility was important. Not a lot of people, when they're on disability, they're low income, right? Yes. So I wanted to make sure there was food available for them. And the other thing too, some people come in, they have mobility issues. Yeah. So I wanted to make sure I had chairs and tables for them to sit. Because most of the networking events that I go to, people are standing and there are no chairs or tables. So that was a big thing for me. And I think with that in mind, I did try to create something. Obviously it was our first event, so it was like a trial run. If it was successful, we would continue next year.
How many people you had present?
So we had, with participants, over 100.
Oh, wow.
If you look at the video, it looked like there was a lot of people, which it made me, I got a little bit scared because I wasn't sure. I did as much as I could to really advertise this, and we only had a month. So really, I was really shocked. But one of the ladies, the guests that we had from Chrome Mental Health, she said to me, anybody that came to her table, she would ask them, how did you find out about Beyond Barriers? And they came from different directions. Everybody from all over the place. We even had one guy who came from the street, came on his bicycle.
Oh, wow.
And he won a prize. So yeah, it's really quite amazing. And the feedback I got was really, truly amazing. Some people said the energy is different in there. Some people said it was like a party. And people with disabilities, from what I heard, was they really felt the love. And that is exactly what I was trying to create. I wanted to make sure I supported that community through all these organizations that provided resources. I had a lot of attendees say, well, I didn't know about that. I didn't know about that organization. I didn't know there was supports like that. And the other thing that happened too were connections that were made. There was one organization that I think people were trying to connect with another organization, and they were in the same building at the Jerry Forbes Center. And through this event, they were able to connect.
That's lovely.
So to hear stuff like that, and then attendees saying, I want to be part of this next year. I want to volunteer. I want to be I want to have an exhibitor booth. So I was like, oh my gosh, we definitely have to do this.
So all this work that you have done in all these months until November, it led you actually to be nominated for the Alberta Blue Cross 2022 Faces of Wellness as being an advocate for mental health and for health in the community. Also, a great opportunity for you to talk about your life as an entrepreneur, a mom, a caregiver to a foster child, and assisting as a caregiver to your grandmother and aging mom, and a volunteer and supporter in the community. So many roles that you have basically in the community.
Thank you for seeing it that way, because sometimes I feel like people don't realize the extent of my life, right, on a daily basis. And so that's where it's very a challenge for me to try to give my time to everybody that I could possibly give. I like to think I'm a good communicator. So if somebody says to me, hey, can we meet? Yes, we can, but I have this on the go right now. Doesn't mean that I don't want to meet you. I'm still going to meet with you, right? And I really hold myself accountable to that. So yeah, it's been a challenge. I don't know some days how I do it. Seriously. It's like, wow. And at Christmas time, I was able to get one day where I was alone. I am rarely
Which is
alone.
very important, right? Self-care, right? And self-love and self-determination, that you also need to take care of yourself,
absolutely.
Right? Which is one of the lessons that we all have to not only resonate to, but learn.
Yeah, because if I can't take care of me, how am I going to take care of all the other people in my life, as you can see that I do, even my business, right? So yeah, it was a big deal for sure. Yeah.
December was the month where you supported 4 other entrepreneurs with their businesses through your podcast. ABD Naturals, Kim's Creations, Xolo Pet Accessories, and Serenity Respite. Yeah,
so it was important for me, especially with Christmas coming up. You know, I don't necessarily want to say, okay, stop supporting the big box stores, but we have small business. Some of them are struggling, and that's a big thing for me. I don't want to see any business fail. My heart hurts when I mean, I've already seen a few posts, right, from people who are like, I just want, the gift I really want is to have my business open past Christmas. Absolutely. Right? So it was important for me, and every Christmas I'm going to do this, is to make sure that I showcase businesses who can offer a gift for my audience to their loved ones, right? So ABD Naturals, oh my gosh, it came from eczema, the son's eczema. So, but now it's expanded. They have a beautiful store in St. Albert, so everybody go see it, right? And Serenity Respite, oh my gosh, who always needs a break, right? And it doesn't have to be parents with children with disabilities. It can be just parents with children, you know, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't have to be children. It could be adult children, right? It just depends on the situation. But if you need a break, that's a great gift to have, right? And then Kim's Creations, I wanted to obviously showcase an Indigenous business. That's important to me again. And oh my gosh, she's got some great food and great baked goods. So definitely when she's in a market, you know, reach out to her. And then Solo Pets, this was I love it when podcasts come together within hours. Usually I plan, take hours or days to plan. This one came within like an hour. So I had a cancellation, reschedule. Sometimes that happens. Life happens, as we know. And I still wanted to, and actually I wasn't planning to do a podcast. I was going to take a break, but I happened to see Gabriella's post. She just started her business. She literally got her products in the mail, like 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And she thought, and she thinks like an entrepreneur, well, Christmas is coming, so what? I want to keep going, right? You could take a break, but as an entrepreneur, she's like, I'm going to go hard. So she put a post and she said, does anybody know what markets I can get into? And I was like, well, how can I support her, right? That's always for me. How can I support another entrepreneur, right? Mm-hmm. So I messaged her and I said, maybe I know there might be a couple of markets left because it's the weekend before Christmas. I said, look at this, but why don't you come become a guest on my podcast? So like within hours, we got that done. And then she was so kind to have a giveaway, in conjunction with iListen and Xolo Pets. So that was really nice, really nice. I wasn't expecting that, but yeah, that's what she did.
That's lovely. So lots of lessons to learn. in 2023, lots of events and great opportunities to mark important days in a calendar of 2023.
Yeah.
I would ask you, what plans does iListen have for 2024?
Yeah, so the focus, I don't want to say it's necessarily shift. I'm still listening to clients. That's never going to go away. I think that's well needed in this world. But I want to continue with the education portion. And so now I'm looking into doing workshops. I have started my entrepreneurs listening circle. But now I've met a few other people. I met a lady at a children's Christmas party who's in the military community. And she works in that community. And she said it's so needed to have a listening circle. So we're hoping to collaborate on doing a listening circle for the military community, which, as we know, it's important, right? PTSD, right? Trauma. But I want to do as many listening circles because what I found through the Entrepreneurs Listening Circle, after each participant spoke, you could see in their face, it's like, oh, I feel so much better.
The release.
It's the release, the venting, like, wow, you let me speak and you didn't say it, because I set up, there's certain rules, guidelines you need to follow when you're doing a listening circle, right? You can't just jump in and speak when somebody else is speaking. That's a very important thing. So just being allowed that whole 10, 15 minutes to talk, wow, does it ever make a difference? I can see it. I know the impact, right? So I want to continue the listening circles. But I'm also going to be working on workshops. I know they're going to happen. It's just getting the location is a big thing, obviously. And then I'm looking at online listening courses. So stay tuned.
Lovely. So I would just want to end this conversation that we have today by asking you what really matters to you in your business and as a human being in your daily life. What's your main purpose and your main why you're doing that?
So for me, through my entire life, I think is learning to be more compassionate and understanding. I'm still a work in progress. I mean, when I was younger, I always had my own point of view. This is the way it is, nothing else, right? And there's a lot of people in the world like that. And the reason why I created this Happily Ever Understood podcast was to show my audience, the world, that there are so many different views, right? And I know just from my experience with other entrepreneurs, oh my goodness, the big thing with me was if I have a challenge or problem and I tell you about it, that doesn't necessarily mean that I need your advice or your solution or to fix my problem. What I really need is you to listen to me, okay? Because maybe I already know. For example, my social media. I bet you most of the people, the entrepreneurs that I've met, they didn't realize that I actually took an entrepreneur's program, right? A training program to be an entrepreneur. One of the courses was to show yourself through social media. Well, so obviously I got trained in that. I know about that. And I'm still learning a lot more. But people are approaching me and saying, you should do this, you should do that, this is how you should do it. And it's like, well, I'm not going to talk to you about my business anymore or my struggles because you feel the need to want to tell me what I should be doing without knowing my position. So the big thing for me is please understand me, that maybe I just need to be heard, right? That's I can tell you 1,000% that being heard is more important than you telling me how I should fix the problem, big time. So please, the rest of the world, understanding is a huge part and what matters to me the most.
That's lovely, Meleda.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. I wish you lots of success in your future endeavors and with the podcast and with your activity and so on and so forth. I'm pretty sure we are going to meet again in one of your podcasts.
Yeah.
Or
well, I need to have you as my guest.
When I'm going to be ready.
Yeah, I know.
That's a work in progress.
Yeah, that's a work in progress. But your story is amazing, and I can't wait for the world to know.
We all have different stories,
Yes.
right? And that's important that you create that space and that comfortable and security space, actually, where people can speak about their stories and they share their stories. And I think that's actually very important.
Thank you.
For all of us. Thank you so much for your work, and good luck in 2024.
Thank you.
And thank you for having me today.
Well, and thank you again for being on my podcast. You're always welcome.